Hello and welcome to Data Analysis and Visualization with Python. This is the 8th video in the series and we are continuing the Python Pandas library with more interesting tools to learn and how we can use them. In this lecture, we are going to take a look at changing the data in DataFrame, perform operations, manipulate columns, and use those calculations to add more information in the DataFrame and then store everything in a CSV file. So let's get started. Let's quickly import Pandas and files library from Google Collab and upload a CSV file for today that I will provide in the unit right after this video. So the file name is going to be championdata.csv. As you can see on the screen, we are gonna import that data into our data frame here. And then print the first few values of it on the screen using the .head function. This is data about all the different champions from the game called League of Legends. You can see the information on the screen with columns like ID, name, class, style, difficulty, and so on. So let's go ahead and type in an interesting function called .describe. So we write data.describe. This function computes a summary of statistics for all the data frame columns and is useful to know a little bit about the general information like mean, standard deviation, and so on. And let's run it. And it's giving us some basic information like count, which the number of values against that column, mean, standard deviation, min, max, and some percentage quantities. It's something to keep in mind just for getting some quick calculations. Next up, sorting. Pandas has its own function for sorting values in a data frame. Let's take a look at ways to sort data. Right now, the data in CSV is stored by the names of champions. And so let's suppose you wanted to sort them by difficulty. So we write data.sortValues difficulty. And when we run it, we can see that the data is stored by difficulty columns from lowest difficulty to the highest difficulty, which is 3. We can sort by multiple columns as well, such that it will return values that start from the lowest of the two. For that, we have to write the names of the columns you want to sort by in a list. Data.sortValues brackets list difficulty and damage. On running, the sorted values start from the lowest of both columns. We can actually choose the way each column is sorted. So like if we wanted to sort a column descendingly, we can just give another parameter to the sort values function. So data.sortValues difficulty and ascending equals false. So the parameter ascending takes a boolean. If it's false, then the data is going to be sorted descendingly for the mentioned column. And for sorting with multiple columns, we can decide for each column how do we want to sort. And it will finalize the sort based on both columns' values. And in this case, the ascending parameter will take a list. So data.sortValues name difficulty ascending equals false and true. And so the result will be such that the name starts from Z and difficulty starts from lowest to highest. So feel free to pause the video and sort some multiple columns just to memorize the use of this function. Okay, now we take a look at modifying and changing the data, perform some basic operations, and get familiar with the handling values from the data frame. So let's go ahead and print out the first 5 values of our data by using the .head function. We can see there are few columns with character data and other with integer data. So now let's say that we want to give each champion a total numerical rating based on their stats. And we want to add a column to this data frame which tells us the total combined stats of style, damage, sturdiness, crowd control, mobility, and functionality. So we want to add these columns and then see which champion has the best stats of all. There are multiple ways to do it. But the easiest one is just adding all the columns you would like to add and then reassigning that value to a newly made column in the data frame. So data total stats equals, so we can see that there is another column added to the data, which is the total stats column. And if we wanted to sort data by highest stats, we can do data.sort values total stats. Okay, but there is a better way to do this. So let's do it again, but first remove the total stats column that we have added. So to delete a column, we can use the dot drop function and then give the argument columns equals, and in the list we can specify which columns we need to remove from the data frame. So let's go ahead and remove the total stats column. Data equals data.drop subcolumns equals total stats. So before running though, remember that the methods like dot sort values and dot drop do not modify the original data frame and just return a modified data frame. So it's important to assign it to a new variable. So the total stats column has been removed. The better way to add a new column is using the iLock attribute that we have discussed in the previous videos. First, let's talk about which columns we want to add. We want to add the style, damage, sturdiness, crowd control, mobility, and functionality columns to their index. And their index would be 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so data total series equals data.iLock. Column means we want all rows. And 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dot sum x is equals 1. The x is equals 1 in the sum function indicates which direction we want to sum the data, and 1 means horizontally and 0 means vertically. So in the last part of this video, we are going to take a look at how to save the modified data as a separate CSV file. But before that, let's just quickly take a look at how you can rearrange columns inside DataFrame. So the column total stats that we have created, if we want to move that column right next to the name column, we can select the first few columns we want and then add the column next to it, and then add the rest of the columns to it, and then finally reassign that entire data frame. So first we get the list of columns. So columns equals list data.columns. Then reassign it as follows. Data equals data sub columns sub 0 colon 2 plus columns sub minus 1 plus columns 3 colon 11. So note that we are passing each value from the column list as a list while rearranging the columns. This is because we are essentially re-adding columns in a data frame and we require a list or series for each column in the data frame. So and now that our data is ready, we can save it in a CSV file by typing the name of our data frame followed by the .toCSV function, and then we can give it a name. So index equals false because we do not want to include an arbitrary column of index. This is usually shown before the first column in data frame, in this case before the ID column. Finally, we can download the file in Google Collab by files.download. Okay, so in this lecture we have learned how to modify a data frame, add new columns, and perform basic operations among the columns. In the next video we will continue and learn about the conditional programming in data frames, filtering data, regex filtering, and finally aggregate statistics. So I'll see you in the next video.